Hi everyone. I tried.
So strange. Every time it like opens and then it admits me and then it says leaving and it closes on me. The computer. I see Miss Comont. I see Mr. Stevens. Three of us. Who else is here?
Melissa.
Oh yeah, Miss Teets is here, so that's four. Ira's not going to be here. And oh, Miss Weiss is not going to be here. She's having issues at her home. She's she mentioned that she's having something happening with her sewer pipe in her yard, and she's out of her house or something. Like her sewer pipe collapsed or something crazy like that.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's like under the street. It's not good.
Yeah, I've heard of things like that happening, but that's pretty unbelievable. And if it's her lateral, then of course she's on the hook to fix it, as opposed to like, that if it's in the public system, but if it's like the part that connects to your house in your yard.
I think it's not in her yard though, so it's a little complicated. I'm not. It's under the street. It's where it connects under the street.
Okay. Sounds like a real nightmare. So needless to say, she will not be here. Okay, well, I'll get started then because we have a critical mass and it's 7:36, so we'll get started. Miss Bazemore, I just kind of went through it, but can you just call, I'm going to officially call to order the Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 meeting of the City of Falls Church Planning Commission. And Ms. Bazemore, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Chair Krosner,
I'm here.
Mr. Stevens,
Here.
Ms. Teets,
Here.
Mr. Puentes, Ms. Weiss, Ms. Comont,
Here.
and Mr. Hyra. All right. Thank you.
All right. So we have 4 of us. Is Mr. Puentes here? I didn't hear him. So he's not here either.
He will not be here tonight.
Oh, that's right. He's in Texas.
Yes.
He's in Austin. He did email me about that. Sorry about that. All right. So we have 4 and we will have 5, but tonight we don't really have any significant action items, so it should be okay to proceed with a skeleton crew for now. Okay. Well, first I will read the required announcements for the virtual meeting. Hopefully not too much more of this, potentially maybe in the springtime. I don't know. We could get back to in person, but for now, I'll read the required notice. The meeting for which this agenda has been posted will be held pursuant to and in compliance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3708.2, and state and local legislation adopted to allow for continued government operation during the COVID-19 declared emergency. All participating members of the Planning Commission will be present at this meeting through electronic means, and all members of the public are welcome to view the meeting at our website, www.fallschurchva.gov/PC, as well as on Falls Church City Television, which you can view on Cox Channel 11, RCN Channel 2, Verizon Fios Channel 35. Public comments are accepted virtually. Anyone signed up to speak tonight, we don't have a public hearing, but as for anyone who's listening for the future, anyone who signs up to speak will do so via the meeting video platform. To speak on a public hearing item or provide general public comment, you'd complete the form at our website, www.fallschurchva.gov/public comment, and you would ideally do that before noon on the day of the meeting. However, I will say for public hearings, if you are logged on or you email and you want to speak during a meeting that's ongoing and you email us during that meeting, you can get the email link sent to you and we would still allow you to speak. Ideally, though, you'd sign up by noon. Following submission of that form, you'll receive those email instructions to join us virtually through the Teams platform. Written public comments are accepted at our email address, plan@fallschurchva.gov, until the end of the meeting, and those are sent to us and summarized at the meeting. All right. So without further ado, we'll get going. First order of business is to adopt tonight's agenda. We only have one significant item which is the work session. So otherwise, I think the agenda seemed logical as published. So I will ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as prepared.
Move to adopt the February 2nd agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please, Ms. Bazemore.
Mr. Krosner,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Teets,
Yes.
Ms. Comont.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. So we will proceed. We do not have a speaker series tonight. Number 5 is the receipt of any petitions for items not on the agenda. Actually, this would be a time where somebody, and I do see a few other names on here, if someone, a member of the public, would like to speak on any topic, but especially if there's anyone who signed up or is here to speak in relation to the work session items, since that's just a work session, now would be the time. If you'd like to speak, it'd be now and not during the work session, since that's a time for staff to ask questions. So, Ms. Bazemore, did anyone sign up, or do we have anyone joining us tonight that provided or that requested a time to speak?
No. All comments were sent in through email.
Okay, just checking, because I do see a few other names on here. Okay, then. Well, then we will proceed. Action items for tonight is just the adoption of the minutes, so it's the January 19th, 2022 minutes. This doesn't seem all that long ago. So does anyone have any comments, edits, revisions on the January 19th minutes? And if not, I'll ask for a motion to adopt said minutes.
Move to adopt the minutes.
Mr. Stevens?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Teets. Any discussion? If not, then a roll call vote.
Mr. Krasner,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Teets,
Yes.
Ms. Coleman.
I'll have to abstain. I missed that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
How many votes was that?
That's 3, so that's not a
That
quorum.
doesn't count. So we'll have to.
Sorry, I should have mentioned
Okay.
that.
So, yeah, if we only have 3, then we can't adopt the minutes technically. We need 4 people to do anything per state code and city ordinance. So we will have to table that. Perhaps when Mr. Hyra joins us, we can pick that up again. So what I would recommend is we pick up the minutes again after the work session. I think Mr. Hyra, at a minimum, will be here at that time, and he was here on the 19th, so we should be able to do it then. Okay, well, then moving right along, making good time here. That brings us to our work session for the evening, item 7A. And our work session for the evening is just one work session. And just so I can read the title properly here, this is a subdivision application 2021-1106 to subdivide one existing lot into 2 lots at property which is currently addressed at 1001 Lincoln Avenue. Application being made by Robin and Darcy Stein, owners of the property. So we have a staff report. I know we've received some correspondence on this and some additional information that's been kind of trickling in as recently as this afternoon on this, but I guess we will start with the staff report. So please, Mr. Hollern, would you provide us with your report on this item?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I was having some audio issues earlier today, so I just wanted to make sure. So I'm Jeff Hollern. I'm with the planning staff. Tonight, Planning Commission is requested to hold a work session to review the first submission for the proposed subdivision at 1001 Lincoln Avenue. This work session is intended to inform the Planning Commission of the application and to provide the Commission with an opportunity to offer feedback in advance of a public hearing tentatively scheduled for February 16th. Staff has reviewed the first submission of the preliminary and final plat, and we provided comments to the applicant in a letter on January 25th, 2022. The comments focused on 3 different topics. One was stormwater, in that staff is hoping to see the applicant provide design and analysis of how proposed houses will be made safe from flooding without increasing flood risks to nearby properties or city streets. Comments also centered around sanitary sewer, where staff would like to see a conceptual design showing how proposed houses will be connected to the sanitary sewer system, and also comments surrounding the installation of a sidewalk. We would like to see the applicant provide a proposed sidewalk cross-section. So the February 16th public hearing assumes that the revised materials can be prepared and submitted for review by staff prior to that meeting. So the project is a subdivision application of one R1B parcel into 2 R1B lots. There will be a tear down of an existing single-family house in order to construct 2 single-family houses at the 2 lots. I'm actually going to skip down to the staff analysis section of the staff report. So as I mentioned, staff reviewed the first submission of the preliminary and final plats and determined that the current application does not meet city code requirements for a subdivision until additional exhibits are provided on how sanitary sewer and stormwater management requirements will be met. As the Planning Commission might have seen today, we had received later on last night and circulated today a conceptual grading plan that was submitted to us by the applicant. So that is under review now. As proposed, other than that being said, as proposed, both lots would meet the minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet for one family dwellings. And it's also worth noting that the lots are consistent with the comprehensive plan, except for there would need to be a sidewalk constructed along West Street frontage of the property to be consistent with the major thoroughfare plan in the comprehensive plan. Down in the public comment section, so yard signs were posted at the property on January 21st. As of writing the staff report, we had not received any public comments, but also as Planning Commission and the applicant is now aware, we've received several emails. The planning staff has forwarded those emails along to the Planning Commission ahead of this meeting. And so they are there for your review. And with that, I can turn it back to the Planning Commission. We do have several members of the applicant team here willing to speak. I do not think that we have anyone from Public Works joining us tonight, but we will make sure that that someone is here for the public hearing next time. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holland. Yeah, I think we'll start with staff and questions anyone on the commission may have for staff, and then of course we can hear from the applicant. So, and first of all, just so I'm clear, obviously the applicant is a contract purchaser. I mean, I know you listed it under the owner's name, but just so I'm clear, the applicant we have here tonight is a contract purchaser of the property, correct?
Yes, I'm just including the name on that was on the application.
Right, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure everyone knows.
Yep.
All right, well, I'll open it up to the commission if they have questions for staff. I have some questions, but I'll open it up to others first if they have any questions for Mr. Hollern about this application. I'm going to look for hands because my smaller screen here, I got to do some scrolling. Okay, Mr. Stevens.
Okay, I guess I'll start off. Yeah, this is a challenging application. I was by there today just looking at the lot, and it definitely presents some challenges. I think the staff report line 110 is kind of a key provision for me, and that is, I think we're going to need to feel comfortable that we're avoiding, as it says there, exorbitant stormwater backup and runoff or flooding to neighboring properties and roadways. So I'll certainly want to be, very clear and have somebody from staff be able to make us feel comfortable that requirement is being met, which I think is going to be a big challenge, just given the depressed nature of the lot and the fact that it does.
Stevens, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If someone could just mute, I'm hearing like somebody's like music or something in the background.
That may be coming from here. I'm not
it's
sure.
your house. Okay, I thought it was someone's kid doing like violin practice or something. Which
No, it's a music
right,
lesson.
if you can't help it, then go for it. Don't worry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I thought it was somebody else who was unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll try it in a few minutes. Anyway, so my concern was that line 110 in the staff report about exorbitant stormwater backup and the challenge that it looks like that lot is going to present. So do you know, Mr. Halloran, will there be somebody when present from staff that can make us feel confident that there won't be stormwater runoff to the neighbors?
As I said, we had just gotten, some of the additional materials just last night. It's been forwarded to Public Works Stormwater engineering staff to look over. So we don't really have any analysis to give you tonight, but yes, the plan is to have someone from Public Works who's been reviewing this right along to come and describe the analysis of what we've received. Yes. As far as making you feel comfortable, acting on the subdivision, I guess that will just have to come from the quality of the resubmittal and if it does meet city requirements.
Right, and I would think the standard that we should be looking at is that it's not causing any runoff to the neighbor's property.
Mm-hmm. I do think that we did have a meeting with the applicant last week, which we had several members of Public Works. I know the goal is definitely not to exacerbate the conditions there, but I think anytime we receive an application like this, the goal is always to go beyond that and make things better, rather than just to not exacerbate the issue. So,
I had other questions, but I see Melissa has a hand up, so I'm happy to defer and come back.
And go ahead and finish your questions. No problem.
The grading plan that was sent out today, I noticed one of the lots was under the 7,500 square feet. Was that something that will be changed?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, we're going to be reviewing all these materials. Like I said, we just got it the other day, so we're sending that out. Staff has not really had an opportunity to go through it yet, so we'll make sure that the lots are up to code. Sure.
And I think the plan at the moment is for street parking along West Street to be eliminated in favor of having a sidewalk and tree planting area. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I gather there's just not enough room in the right of way there to allow all of those needs to be met.
Yes. Like I said, sometimes when some of these applications come through, staff likes to take seize the opportunity to, connect some of these neighborhoods with sidewalks. This was a street that was outlined in the 2005 comp plan, the major thoroughfare plan, and so the city staff has the right to ask for that sidewalk there.
Right. Although it is a little bit early with all of the other materials to be reviewed and so forth, my preliminary reaction is that is a good move and that having a sidewalk there is very important. So I'll just provide that feedback at the moment. And I think that's all that I've got for right now. I may have some others later.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. All right, Ms. Teets, go right ahead.
Yes, well, Mr. Stevens asked one of my questions because I did think it was odd that it looked like one of the lots was under the 7,500 because certainly there's enough square footage for two legal R1B lots there. So I'm sure that was just something that they can fix. So my understanding is because these are residential lots, they have to submit the grading plan. And I'm hearing much from a lot of the neighbors in that area about they're very concerned about stormwater and runoff. And, Mr. Stevens spoke to that. But isn't there there's for the subdivision itself, I'm not sure that we can actually vote against it based on stormwater. That's not one of the provisions for a legal site plan, but that all of the stormwater issues have to be dealt with at the grading plan, correct? And basically for a residential lot, I think the only thing we can do is make sure that there's not more runoff from the lot than there is currently. Is there more than that we can do now?
Mr. Holland, can you respond to that? I know I talked to you and Mr. Stoddard about that offline, but But can you?
I mean, I'd love to be able to do more, but
I think you're correct. We, like I said, we have really the standard, I believe, is that we are trying not to exacerbate, the existing conditions. We take it, we try to take it a step further when possible, and fix things. But I think the standard is that we cannot exacerbate what's already happening. So that being said, Planning Commission can probably not, deny a subdivision because it doesn't make things better. But at this point, staff does not feel comfortable recommending the subdivision because of the stormwater conditions at the site. And we won't know anymore until we're able to work through this grading plan and really, analyze it.
yeah, well, I'm actually glad to hear that, because in the past, we've been told that we can't deal with the stormwater, and I've been to more than one grading plan meeting where the staff has asked for things, and then the applicant has said, no, I'm not going to do it. And there was not very much that the staff could do because we just didn't have the legal right. So anything the staff can do to deal with that stormwater, I much appreciate.
Sure, and I would say, credit also to the applicant. We don't typically ask for a grading plan at this juncture with a subdivision. So because of the comments, and we did meet a couple of times with the applicant team, they were able to turn this around very quickly. And I would imagine that they would be able to turn around something else between now and the targeted public hearing. Again, to make staff feel better and feel better about a recommendation to Planning Commission. So they have done a great job responding to comments pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Holler, I'll go now. I mean, I think one thing that needs to be, I live in the neighborhood, so I'm pretty familiar with this lot and the long-standing problem. I think one thing that's important for the commission to understand is that, this lot, I think, well, actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to read an email we got from a neighbor on Steeples Court. But I think he kind of sums it up. He sums it up quite well, and as far as like what actually is going on here. This is an email we got from David Thurkill, owner of the property at the corner at 1004 Steeples Court. I think he's observed it the same way I've observed it over the years, living not that far away. And so this lot, this lot is the lowest point. Before I read his email, just to give some folks context, this lot in that back corner especially is the lowest point that drains an area that's all of everything west of Highland Avenue, all of Pine Street, all of Walnut Street, Lincoln Avenue from, between north of Northwest Street and Sycamore Street, and then the backside of Steeples Court and some of the backside of Homes on Grove. All of that area funnels through a combination of at-grade, curb and, gutter when there's no storm sewer, and then into a storm sewer system, which is on Lincoln. There's only storm sewers on Lincoln. The storm sewers on Lincoln kind of converge a few lots north of here, and they join with an underground pipe that runs along the backs of the houses on the between Lincoln and Steeples Court, and it all works its way right to this point where there's a current pipe that goes underneath West Street. So the entire neighborhood drains to this point, and the pipe that's under West Street is very old. It's certainly undersized for the amount of stormwater volume that it now handles. So in heavy rain events, which happen several times a year, this lot takes on feet of water. And it actually, and I'll read Mr. Thurkill's letter because he kind of sums it up pretty accurately. He's talking about, how would they be able to, I note that the issue is identified by Planning Commission staff, the issue of flooding, and that the commission has requested the applicant provide design and analysis demonstrating that the proposed housing development will not increase flooding risk. I suspect the only way the developer will be able to accomplish this is by building some sort of storage system to retain additional flood volumes that will be generated. Also, how the developer grades the property will be an issue. Right now, a third of that property is underwater after about an inch of high-intensity rainfall. with West Street and the undersized culvert acting as a dam until the water ponds high enough to overflow onto the road. The only flood storage that currently exists is what's left of essentially this de facto floodplain on this lot on the back of 1001 Lincoln. The developed, upstream properties have filled it in. There's been a lot of, new development in the neighborhood. And if it happens again, if there's more excavated soil and fill, the water will have nowhere to go, but again, overflow further, into some of the adjacent properties, especially I will say the properties at Steeples Court, those properties at the end there, some of those photos we got are very accurate. During heavy rains, the water ponds almost to the backs of the homes there on Steeples Court, especially that end unit, the end town unit that's like right at the end there. I mean, I don't know if it's ever gotten in their house, but I think it's out of all the homes in the neighborhood, it's gotten very close to the rear of that house. And so the issue here is, as I see it, and this is for staff, I think, to look at, is it's not, obviously there's the minimum chest bay requirements for detaining. But, I think here we have a question of adequate outfall. Can they actually outfall? And as well as, again, not creating by filling the property or raising it. And of course, just putting in the house itself, creating a new impoundment that just, pushes that water, on, essentially would be up and, into the properties of some of the adjacent homes. And so, those photos are not one-off events, like some of the photos that were attached in the letters by some of the neighbors we received from the neighbors on Steeples. So I think for my fellow commissioners, just because I have some firsthand knowledge of watching some of the events that have gone on back there, this is an unusual situation. The lot is underneath the road, and there's this pipe. So again, it acts like a dam, and it fills up many feet deep. Like you could swim in it, you could row a boat in it. That's how deep it gets here. So trying to envision a new home there, I wonder how they would protect that home from flooding. But even if they could figure that out, what that would do as far as shifting the water onto some of the adjacent properties and not sending it into the first level of the home on Steeples at the end there is a major concern. And I know staff has been made aware of that, but just my fellow commissioners to look at it. We're not just talking about, the additional runoff that this home would create from their impervious. It's creating an impoundment or something that would shift the water away from this area where it currently collects, where again, there may have been a reason why, for all these years, there was never a home built back there, because it's underwater. I mean, it's like a lake several times a year. So it's kind of, I know staff has requested a grading plan, and or some additional stormwater details, more than we might normally request. But I would agree with staff. I would think it's called for here, given the somewhat unique nature and the severity of the problem and the potential to cause harm to not only the city right-of-way, but also to these adjacent private properties that surround it. And I think the subdivision ordinance does provide the planning commission with the ability to not create a lot that will, again, cause damage to other homes or exacerbate a significant problem. And so while the developer is not necessarily responsible for fixing an undersized pipe, at least not solely responsible for fixing an undersized pipe, there is a responsibility, not to worsen a severe existing problem by allowing, and for the city to allow new home construction, a new lot to be built in an area that, has this flooding problem. I think is something that is built into the subdivision ordinance, and some of the, limited discretion we do have. It is limited discretion, but so that's kind of my soliloquy for staff. I know Mr. Holland is not a stormwater expert and doesn't have all the answers. I think that's going to be key when this does come back, for a public hearing, or perhaps another work session. I mean, we'll see. I think the time frame laid out by staff is a little aggressive, depending on how much information the applicant's able to provide to really analyze this problem, to do some engineering and look at the reality and model perhaps, some of the situation that's going on there as far as the volumes of detention that might be necessary to deal with this issue. So I think, we'll have to see if it's ready for that or not on the 16th. The 16th may be, could be a public hearing, could be another work session. I think we'll have to wait and see what materials are provided and where we're at, and does staff have enough time to review it carefully on the staff side, whatever the applicant provides. So and so that's kind of my recommendation for staff, is that that's a key issue. I mean, there are other issues, but I think that's obviously for a subdivision application, that's probably the most critical here, as I see it. So anyhow, so with that kind of is like, I don't know, Mr. Holland, I know you have anything to respond to that. I know you don't have, like, you probably have more questions than answers now, just like I do, but are we planning to have, I know you mentioned, that some of our stormwater folks, are going to have a chance to look at it, but I think they need to not only look at it, provide us their feedback, but probably attend the next meeting that we have, so that if there are questions by the public or of other commissioners, that they're there to answer that directly. Is that something that you can do? Make sure that they're here at the next meeting we have on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Actually, I'm sorry, Ms. Comont, before we go on to let the applicant, have a chance to speak, do you have anything that you wanted to ask before we kind of jump over to like the applicant's presentation?
No, I mean, no questions. I think I'm on the same page as all three of you. On Melissa's question, I was just looking at the subdivision ordinance, and the way it reads, it sounds like we have the authority, maybe a little more authority here than I think, Melissa, you were thinking we might have. At section 38-31, conditions for approval of a plat, it says no plat of any subdivision shall be approved unless the land included within the subdivision is suitable for the various purposes for which it is intended to be used, and in particular, unless all land intended as building sites can be used safely for building purposes without danger from flood or other inundation or from any other menace to health, safety, or public welfare. I mean, the way I read that, it sounds like this would be something that would be considered at the subdivision point in the process. But this is my first, I'm new to the commission. I'm only been here a year, so you all have much more experience than I do.
No, I think you're right, Ms. Comont. I think, that the way that's in there for a reason, and I think that's right. I mean, that's like again, health and safety and welfare type of provision, for a subdivision, right? We're not really trying to be, it's not a subjective thing here at the subdivision stage, but there are health and safety issues that, including, flooding and inundation. This lot is both inundated and flooded. It may not be in a RPA or it may not be in a FEMA flood, but this lot is, severely inundated and flooded, and to build a house in harm's way is something that, we as a commission need to think about very carefully. But again, so with all that, I've said a lot. We've all said a lot. I'd like to hear from the applicant group. I know we have Mr. Bean here and perhaps some other folks. And so you've heard the concerns. I'm sure the staff has shared some of the concerns from the neighbors. I assume you've done some research into this lot. So I'm very interested to hear, your take on understanding the problem here and how you envision addressing such a severe problem to build a house on the southern portion of this property. Mr. Bean, or whoever's going to be representing the applicant, are you there?
Yes, hello, this is Adam Bean with Greenbuilt Homes. We are representing the owners of the property to try to get the lot subdivided. I'm here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Did you hear what I just said? You've heard our concerns. You've heard concerns from some neighbors, at least, some preliminary concerns. I hope that you've done a little due diligence and research into the severe flooding problems, on the rear portion of this lot. And so I'm interested to hear how you envision dealing with that and how you could build a home in that location that A, wouldn't itself be subject to severe flooding, and B, wouldn't force current, stormwater inundation onto adjacent properties.
Well, we submitted a plan last night that shows a preliminary grading idea where we have a home sited on the lower lot that's well above any flood level that could occur on the lot. And certainly the building code addresses how to build a home that's not going to flood with proper foundation drainage, sump pump, etc. I'm confident that the structure itself we would build there would not flood.
Have you seen the photos? I mean, I live nearby, so I've lived it for 10 years. I mean, have you seen some of the photos? I don't know if you've probably never been there,
I have. I'm sorry. I have seen photos as of early this afternoon for the first time. And I'm actually surprised by the condition that is at the site right now. And I think you said it yourself, and city staff has also said it, that the pipe currently serving the neighborhood is undersized. And I think the city infrastructure here is adversely affecting this lot and the neighbors on Steeples. And I think we have to figure out a way to work around the fact that the undersized pipe provided by the city is negatively impacting this lot and the property owners, the Steins, and their ability to subdivide, and therefore the value of the lot.
Perhaps, but I think, and I wouldn't say that the responsibility to fix that falls solely on you or on them. But I do think that it presents some challenges here that, it's something that a lot of that may be true, that, ultimately that is the city's infrastructure and there's some deficiencies there that are longstanding. But, again, I think in order for us to say we're not going to exacerbate that, we can't sort of put our heads in the sand and pretend that's not there and say, oh, well, and let's just build a house there and raise it up and then, shift that water, into, potentially into that home. There's the one townhouse right behind that. I've seen the water myself get almost up to their back door, literally feet away from their back door. And so, again, I think I see you submitted a grading plan, which shows, some, I guess, what I would call standard measures, as far as dealing with, infiltration to deal with the new impervious you're introducing. But what I'm very concerned about is, as the neighbor at 1001 or 1004 Steeples observed, this lot is kind of de facto serving as like flood storage. It's serving as like a de facto floodplain. It's accumulating all this water. If a large home now is plopped down in the middle of it, I'm sure you could build it high enough to avoid, getting water into their first floor. Although I have a feeling their basement and areaway could get overwhelmed even with the best sump pump on the market. I think that the issue then becomes that water now has to go somewhere. It's being displaced, and it's got to go somewhere. And it unfortunately, my fear is that it would go to that townhouse end unit right behind. And so that's the kind of information I think I'd be looking for from your engineer to provide. I mean, I don't doubt that, again, all things being equal, they can design based on the amount of new impervious you're putting in, a standard, Chesapeake Bay compliant stormwater solution with proper infiltration and proper quantity and quality controls. But I think this lot has such unique challenges that, I think that needs to be addressed in detail at this stage so that everyone can be assured we're not building a house in harm's way and we're not creating an additional hazard over and above what's already there for the immediate adjoining properties.
Yes, most of this information we've gotten as a team here has come after our meeting with staff late last week and even today, some of the comments from the neighbors. So we're still getting our heads around this as well. We certainly don't want to cause any additional problems for any of the neighboring properties. We're here to work with the city staff, and but we cannot over-engineer our lot in a way to make up for the inadequate sewer system that's there now, storm sewer that is.
That's true, but you also can't build a house in harm's way and damage other properties too. So we're going to have to kind of wrestle with that. Mr. Stevens, why don't you go ahead? Your hand is up.
Well, kind of a tangential question. I think this would be for Mr. Holloran, and that's whether or not the city would consider requiring a lot, perhaps in this type of a situation or a similar situation, to require on-site storage like we do in the commercial locations.
Well, some amount of storage is required, or, some amount of storage is required in some form, just for normal Chest Bay requirements. The issue is, that's typically for the 2 and 10 year, and, it's based on the calculations for how much impervious they're adding. And so I think, that the issue here, I think, is it's so much additional water, and then it gets to adequate outfall. I mean, that's something, I don't know. I see actually that the applicant's engineer, if I'm seeing his name correctly, Mr. Jabori, I see you're on the call. I don't know if you were planning to speak tonight, but I'd be interested if you're not planning to speak tonight, that's fine. But if you had anything to add from an engineer's perspective as far as what's going on here. I mean, I think you need to, really understand some of the unique situation that's happening at the rear portion of this lot, because I think it's going to require some pretty intensive and creative engineering to try to deal with this problem here, because it's far from what I would call the typical problem in this neighborhood. This lot is actually, out of the entire neighborhood, this lot has the most severe and significant flooding inundation of any property I'm aware of in the whole neighborhood. And maybe there's another one in the city that is worse, but I can't think of it. So.
Good evening, everyone. The Planning Commission members, this is Kayvon Jaburi. I'm the applicant's civil engineer. I get your point, Mr. Krasner. We have been given the pictures, the photos from the flooding events. But before I address your concern regarding stormwater management, Mr. Stevens and Ms. Teets made a comment regarding the lot size. The proposed new lots both have in excess of 7,600 square foot surface area. I think the misunderstanding may be that, and I was kind of surprised from the staff report, these are currently two lots. There's a lot 49 and a lot 50 currently existing. Lot 49 indeed is less than 7,500 square foot, but with the subdivision that we're proposing, both lots are meeting all the zoning requirements for the subdivision. To just repeat, lot 49A, if I'm not mistaken, is proposed to be 7,664 square foot, and lot 50A, which is the corner lot at the intersection, it will have 7,667 square foot of land. In regards with stormwater management issues that everybody rightfully so is concerned about, I don't know if the members of the Planning Commission have been sent the concept grading plan. There are two other pieces on that sheet. There are three views. One is the shear grading plan showing what we're proposing to do in regards with grading the two lots. And then there is an existing condition drainage divide and a proposed condition drainage divide. Discussing the grading plan itself, that's the furthest to the left on the sheet. We're providing, as you, Mr. Krasner, mentioned, we're providing an infiltration trench facility on each lot. And per code, we are required to ensure that the runoff from the facilities is less than or equal to the existing condition for each lot. And if you notice, the infiltration trench in the lower lot, 49A, is larger in size than the one in the front, because the rear lot, after it's subdivided, it would be considered an open land undeveloped in regards with impervious coverage. That's why the trench is larger. Now, having said that, admittedly, we do not have any values for the infiltration trench, but regardless, perk rates for the infiltration trenches, but regardless, we are required to meet both the city and the state code, and that will be met. But in regards with what is existing going to the back of the lot where the water impoundment occurs and what will happen afterwards, the current condition shows that there is a sort of in the middle of the lot in the back where the water ponds, there is an existing grate inlet that connects, drains into the piping system that is there. From the site, our two parcels currently, the entire parcel drains to that structure, which is 15,331 square foot. After our development, the uncontrolled portion of the property or land that will end up in that structure that is currently existing in that easement is going to be reduced to 2,700 square feet. So the uncontrolled version of the land that goes to that structure is significantly reduced, something like 20% of it, 20% of what is there now, if not less. What is 2,700 divided by 15,000? It's 18%. So we are improving or reducing the area draining to that inlet by some 82%. That's one point. In order to prepare the documents that you all are seeing, we needed to survey the property. The existing inlet, I'm just making the commission aware of our findings and, in our opinion, why some of these issues have come about. The existing grate inlet that is in the back of the property was not readily visible. It was covered by leaves and debris. The top of it was not visible. The way the survey crew figured it out, they saw some riprap when they were surveying the ground, and then they said, okay, what is this riprap here for? So they dug around and they exposed the grate top. So that grate inlet would not function as efficiently as it should because it was covered by leaves and branches and so forth and so on. It is in a city easement. In our opinion, it was evident that it had not been maintained for a very long time. Then they pop, in order to survey the invert of the pipe system, they pop the grate off, and there is about 6 to 8 inches of sand, dirt, and debris sitting in that pipe that is larger and going towards the structures in the roadway. On top of that, that existing pipe, the larger piece going to the left, is guessed to be a 36-inch corrugated metal pipe, which has been squished to fit the condition and then they have measured it to be something like a 24 by something, or 28 inches in depth. So when you squish a round pipe that is metal to be as small as 28 or 29 inch, automatically you're reducing its capacity, not to mention that the bottom 6 to 8 inches of the pipe is covered by debris that is sitting there. Then in the structure downstream in the street, water is literally standing there. Not to fault anybody, but we do wonder in our office here if a bit of maintenance would alleviate a fair portion of the problem that everybody is complaining about. It is evident, in our opinion, that this system has not been maintained for a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's a fair, I mean, those are all fair points, and you know, we're not looking necessarily to cast blame on anybody here, but I mean, I think in the city, you know, some of it's public infrastructure, and I think that you're right that the city does have a role to play in maintaining its infrastructure, you know, for the benefit of this property and everybody else. I think the issue becomes, the sequencing of that, and that's why we wanted to have somebody from DPW here, and we will at the next meeting. It sounds like, according to Mr. Holland, to address these kind of questions. And because that's a very valid question. I'd have the same question to them. I'm aware of the city over the years has done some type of surveying of the existing, because that pipe, it continues up, several hundred feet, north of this lot, but what happens today, of course, is you have the pipe itself is undersized even further up. So you have both surface flow, the pipe is filled up, water continues to flow. You also have then water flowing above it on the surface. And so you have in that easement area, which continues, that 10-foot storm easement, which continues all the way, north several hundred feet, maybe 1,000 or more feet. You have, water traveling through the pipe plus water traveling at grade. And it all works its way down to that point. Again, just the way the nature of it is, that back corner of proposed lot 49A, or I guess it's the front, southeast corner, is the lowest spot, and is all the water for a very large area is finding its way into that point. And so a lot of that water, right, is not the fault of this lot, but this lot is the downhill lot. And then the issue becomes, trying to, again, build something that's not going to put a new house in harm's way, understanding that, again, there's a substandard condition, and of course, not exacerbating. Mr. Holland, could you pull up just so we could some of that photo? I mean, there may be better photos out there, but the ones that were provided attached to the email, I don't know if Ms. Bazemore, Ms. Holland can pull up the photo just so everyone can see. I think it's the photo taken from like the back of the last home on Steeples. And it might have just been from last summer. I mean, there have been, again, it happens several times a year. It's definitely driven by, it's a flash flood situation. The water, pulls up very fast. Within an hour or two, it eventually works its way down. So, right. So that photo, I mean, that is on the lot. I mean, you can see it. And if you look at the other photo, that's like taken from the backyard of the lot on Steeples, which is that one, right? So that's looking from the back of the home on Steeples onto lot 40, proposed lot 49A. And you can see the brown, the water, how expansive that is, how it spreads out, right? Because it can't, it hits a dam essentially, which is the grade at West Street. The pipe, right, can't funnel it fast enough. And so it pulls up and it turns into that situation. So I guess, the challenge I would see, and the engineering challenge, is understanding that, and understanding that perhaps the city has some role in ameliorating that. I mean, I think the responsibility though any developer of this lot would have would be you're going to need to, whether either way you slice it, you're going to need to deal with building a house that's in an area that's now currently a lake several times a year. And so, how do you deal with that? And then and what does that do to the neighboring properties when we have another similar storm, which is, again, like I said, several times a year it happens, when we have heavy rainfall rates, typically in the summertime between like May and October. So I think that's the challenge, like these are the facts on the ground that we're dealing with. This lot suffers from this problem, and I think it's going to require some unique solutions to address it. And some of it may fall with the city, but, getting into the sequencing of that, I think is another thing we need to talk about as far as, how can we ensure that a home won't be built and then, either suffer flooding itself or, cause new flooding to occur, especially to this lot where this photo is taken from. You can see how close it is, to the back of the home there. It's, and that probably was one of the more typical events as opposed to like the 2019 kind of catastrophic event. So anyhow, that's kind of what we're dealing with. I just, for everyone to look at that. So I hear what you're saying, Mr. Jabori, and I appreciate what you're saying. And I think it's been a longstanding issue, regardless of, this lot being built or not. But I think because you're in now to, build on this lot and or create a new lot, I think we're forced to look at it. We have no choice but to look at it. We can't kind of ignore it and say, well, it's a city problem. One day they'll get to it. So go ahead and just go for it. We need to make sure that based on what the code requires that, we're not building a home, allowing a new home to be constructed in an area that's we know to be hazardous. That to us would be, I think, a dereliction of our responsibility as planning commissioners and as the city. So I think, I'm not predisposed to an outcome here. I think we need to look at it, and I think, to see what can be done on many fronts to come up with a viable solution. And if we can achieve that, then great. Then it's a win-win for everybody. Then then they get a new lot. The neighbors get remediation of a longstanding flood concern, and everyone's happy. But what we don't want to see is kind of a lose-lose. Except for where a new home is built that's subject to damage and flooding, and then other homes that previously were escaped property damage now are subject to property damage. So that's how I see it. But I do appreciate where you're coming from. Do any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? I know, Mr. Hyra, I don't have to put you on the spot. I know you joined late, and I know you didn't get to ask any questions on this item of staff. So if you have any questions, go ahead. If not, that's fine too.
May I have a follow-up, Mr. Krasner?
Absolutely.
Respectfully, we exercise due diligence, and as I mentioned, we are significantly reducing with our proposed development the amount of uncontrolled runoff that gets to that structure. I personally, after 30 some odd years of experience in land development, I believe by developing these two lots, and especially the lower lot, in conjunction with a bit of more serious maintenance from the city, this water ponding will be diminished significantly. What can I share my screen on something? May I?
Sure. I think you're able to do that. I think there's a button. I think
I should have. This is not the one I want. Sorry. I don't want to. Let me see. Share screen. Okay. Can everybody see the this thing with the red bubble in the back? Can you see my screen?
Just seeing like the plan.
Exactly. Do you see this red area in the back? Is
I'm not
this?
seeing any red. I'm just seeing the black and white plan sheet.
You're seeing the grading plan.
Okay. So let me see what is going on there. Bear with me a second. I don't want to lose everybody. That's why. Okay, I'm back here. More actions, stop sharing, share, and this. Can you see this now?
No.
Not still?
Now we see Now we just see any screen now.
Okay.
Doesn't he need to be given permission before he can pull up a document?
I don't know. Ms. Bazemore, do you have to grant permission for someone to share their screen? Or can they
No, he should be able to share.
You still don't see what. Are you just seeing me now, or are you seeing?
Yeah, we're just seeing. We're not seeing any content now. Just everyone's smiling faces.
Okay, can you see now? This.
Now we got it. Yeah.
Okay. This is the overland area that runs into that great inlet in the back of our property. Overland to that structure. This chart in the lower right talks about, let me zoom in some. This is, that area that drains to that structure is a little over 3/4 of an acre. Based on a 35% maximum impervious cover on every lot, we have a coefficient of runoff of 0.5 coming to that structure, the 10-year intensity of 6.77 inches per hour creates, for a 10-year storm, creates 2.6 CFS. This chart is a design of a great inlet chart. When I put that 0.264 in this chart and come across with the size of the inlet and all of that, we should not get more than 2/10 of a foot, 2/10 of a foot depth of water. Then if I can figure out how to bring this other,
Mr. DeBoer, one question, just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just
Can you
one question while you're doing
Yes.
that. I mean, your map, I mean, I don't know if it's taken into account the fact that, again, the pipe, during heavy rains, I guess, beyond the 10-year storm, but not much beyond it. I mean, its draining area, I mean, the entire, area to the north, like along the back, between, the Steeples property and the backs of the homes on Lincoln and all the way up, is draining overland, into that yard. I mean, it's all finding its way down there because the pipe itself, gets overwhelmed, and water is draining from, a much larger area and finding its way to that corner. I mean, so
My argument, Mr. Krasner, is that I agree with you. But lot 48, which is the immediate lot upstream from the current condition, lot 49, has a yard inlet in it. That inlet, that structure is not functioning. Everything, in my professional opinion, everything is not working right because of the pipe system being inadequate and unmaintained. I kid you not. If the city takes a few hours and finds a way to clean that whole run, these neighbors will not see half as much flooding.
and that, and I think that certainly is going to be part of the solution here. Absolutely. I think that's going to be part of the solution here. The back of that property was overgrown, and again, there was nobody, I think, who lived in that house who was really maybe, alerting the city to that condition back on, on their property. And so I agree, if they pulled that off for the first time in years and they found that condition, I completely agree with you. And that's something that we're going to put to the city, the DPW folks, when they're here next time. And hopefully Mr. Holling will pass that on to them, that the maintenance, right, regardless, that has to happen, and there's no reason to wait for that. That could happen tomorrow. So I hear you. And I think that's something that definitely is going to be part of the solution here. So I appreciate that. I think that, and I'd be interested to see if you can, somehow, model that or show that. I mean, I see what you're showing here, as far as the volumes, based on, how much the pipe may be constricted now versus if it's cleaned out and what that may do, how many additional, as you said, CFS or gallons, can now flow that are being stocked up now. I mean, that would be interesting to know if you're able to provide it.
Before I continue, do you now see the screen that has a red bubble on it?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the area that I showed the calculations for, and based on the current topography of that lot, that much water should pond only that red bubble for the 10-year storm. I just wanted to share that with you. In regards to modeling this, modeling it is going to be a challenge and a half because that pipe is not truly a 36-inch pipe. It's been squished on both ends. Plus, in order to model that to see what happens, it needs to be evaluated all the way. The way that's going to work, we need to evaluate it as what is called a hydraulic grade line. A hydraulic grade line analysis cannot start halfway upstream at some arbitrary point. You've got to go all the way to the outfall get a known water surface elevation and work up based on the drainage area to each piece of the pipe and work it up. It can be modeled, yes. But one is, it's a tall order if you would like to see it properly done. Secondly, it cannot be modeled properly because I don't know what other pipes downstream are squished in. You got to survey the whole thing. I don't think the city has adequate information so we can model it.
Well, the city, one thing I know, the city, a few years ago, the city, there have been fits and starts, on stormwater in the city in general, but in this neighborhood, I know a few years back, the city had some outside group do some surveying work in this area. Again, I live, a little bit north of here, and I know there was a time where folks the city hired came out and pulled up some of the manhole covers, had some surveying equipment, were doing some analysis, and I don't know where that went, and I don't know where what the data, and the final product of that was. But I would, again, we should ask the city. I think we're asking Mr. Holland, I think we're asking the city if there's any additional information the city has on the state of the infrastructure there, to provide that, because I agree that might be helpful. I don't expect, this applicant to take on, a citywide project, but I think the city may have some additional information. The underground pipe continues to the north, like another couple hundred feet, then it daylights, and then into the south, it keeps on going much further. So yeah, I hear you. The city may have some additional information. We should find out what we do have. It was probably like 5 years ago, so not ancient, like 5 years ago that they did some work there. And I don't know what that was about and what the end product was, but they had some folks, certainly maybe they were just looking for the current condition of it, just doing like a condition analysis, but they were looking at it.
On the north side, pardon me for interrupting you, it matters not to us, unless you want to go all the way up to the top of the run. It matters not to us what happens north of us. We got to figure out what's going on south of us so we can work it upstream. That's how hydraulic grade line works.
Yeah, I understand. But just as far as the only reason I'm concerned about, the concern about north to me is, again, just an issue of impoundment, making sure that by putting, a house in the way here, that we're not displacing water, that, again, as was noted by a neighbor, this area serves as a de facto detention basin or floodplain now. It wasn't designed to do that, but that's kind of what it's doing. And by putting a large house foundation in the way, it's going to displace some of that water, a lot of that water, and so where's it going to go? And that's the concern, both for this property and for potentially for, within some radius, upstream as well. So that's something that I'm concerned about.
Based on what I shared with you earlier, I really don't believe we are exasperating the situation, because we are not. Yes, we are increasing the imperviousness on both lots, but we surely are not adding any runoff to that particular structure in the bottom of our property. We are by code required not to release more water than what is being released today. So based on that, I don't think we're going to worsen the situation.
Well, I hope not. I'm talking more about creating, again, de facto impoundment now by displacing, by putting a house foundation, in this area that now, assumes the appearance of a wet pond or sort of a basin during heavy rains. By now putting a large piece of concrete in the middle of it, it's it's going to displace some of that water and send it all in all directions. And so, that's the concern I have. I know lot 48 to the north, it ponds up as well. The ponding is not localized to 49 and Steeples. I know it continues up to the back of lot 48 as well. I'm pretty sure those folks live a few, lots down from me. They have a trampoline back there. I've seen it float around, like a boat, during some of these events. So I know Lot 48 is also dealing with, the significant inundation and pounding. So it spreads out over a several lot area down there because, like I said, it's the lowest spot of the entire, area. All finds its way down there. So I hear you. As far as the amount of additional impervious, but I'm concerned about, again, putting a large home foundation in this area that is serving, de facto as this, catch basin, and what does that do to the surrounding properties? But I hear what you're saying.
Thanks. I just want to reiterate that we feel confidently that we're not exasperating the situation. If anything, we're improving it. But city needs to maintain this stuff too.
I agree with you there. No argument on that point. Well, listen, I think, we've expressed the concern. I don't want to belabor this, tonight. Mr. Stevens, why don't you go ahead?
Just a point of information. I was wondering, are these houses planning to have basements?
Yes.
So, yeah, it goes without saying, obviously, the concern about, what could happen to that house, given what happens there today. So, like the amount of water that could potentially infiltrate that basement through the areaway and, through basement windows and whatnot could be significant. That's a concern as well. So, and I don't think, any developer would want to build a house like that that's subject to damage and flooding. So, again, that's why I think we need to look at it carefully because of what's going on here. So we don't need to belabor it anymore. I think we've expressed the concern. I think the neighbors have expressed the concern. We're looking for as much detail and as you can provide to show that you've really looked at all angles of this issue. And when we have the public hearing, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of neighbor testimony. People may have other vantage points to this issue because it affects, multiple lots down here. And we'll hear what folks have to say. But I think, what I would recommend the applicant does is to consider that because it's just the nature of this lot. It's got some unique challenges, and telling us that it can just be developed like any other lot, I think is a little bit simplistic. I think this lot has some unique things going on. I've been in the development game a long time too, and I've seen a lot of lots. And this one, I've seen other challenges, but this one has some peculiar things going on. And I hope there are some creative engineering solutions that can make it better for everybody. And the city will have a role to play in that. But I think, I'd like to make sure that you've, really gotten a good handle on some of the peculiar, unique situations going on here. And, we can come up with solutions that will address it for everyone's benefit. I mean, that's really the goal here. We're not looking to put up roadblocks to people, but we're looking to do our job and make sure that we're not allowing for development in an area that it's just not suited for, because that would not be in the interest of the city and support the comprehensive plan, the ordinance, etc. So we'll look forward to hearing additional, seeing additional information, in the coming weeks leading up to the 16th, and we'll see where we go from there. I don't know if any other folks had other things. I mean, I'll just chime in. I think the sidewalk is great. I think the sidewalk is actually it's a missing link. It's sorely needed right now. Again, a lot of folks have to walk, in the shoulder to get down to the trail. I mean, yes, there is a sidewalk on the other side, but many folks want to kind of head down right to the trail and then go west. And kids who walk to school, a lot of folks live in the neighborhood and walk to MEH and the high school, have to kind of cross the street and then cross back at the trail if they want to stay on a sidewalk. And so a new sidewalk there it's a short section, but that actually is a huge positive. So I'm very pleased to see that being part of the plan. And it sounds like the city can come up with a way to, then there's a short distance on Steeple's property to connect it with what was just done with Founders. And so, that to me is a big win, for the neighborhood. So I'm happy to see that. So that's a positive note. I mean, I think that getting a sidewalk there is way better than a few parking spots, which are mostly never used, except by a lot of contractors building Founders Row used to park there. But since that finished, I don't see a lot of parking there. So I think the sidewalk there is a big win as far as that goes. So, all right. I don't know if there's any other questions, comments, or anybody before we move on. But if not, I appreciate the applicant coming and listening to us and hearing the concerns we have and reading and listening to the neighbor concerns. And we look forward to working with you on this in the coming weeks.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll be working with staff diligently over the next few days to get the items to them.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Well, moving right along. The next item is item 8, our information item. And 8A is Planning Commissioner reports, if anyone has anything to share. Anyone have anything they'd like to share? Any interesting meetings folks have attended in the last couple of weeks? Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
Yeah, I attended the EDA meeting last evening, and they covered a number of topics that are of interest to us. The first one had to do with the 10-acre commercial development up at West Falls and the EDA's role in that, since the ground lease for most of the project is 99 years. It's going to exceed what state code allows the city to do, so the default is to have the EDA kind of own that lease, so to speak. And so Mr. Shields kind of gave an early review of the steps leading up to that. There'll be a memorandum of understanding between the EDA and the city that would outline, presumably pretty carefully, the EDA's roles so that they don't have to be involved in the money aspect as far as accepting monthly rent payments and that sort of thing. It'll just go directly to the city. Atlantic Realty gave another presentation on the One City Center. A couple of issues that were raised by various members include the architecture of the existing building. That still kind of rubs some people the wrong way. Some people recommended that the area that's designated as a park be a dog park. Not something that I find terribly interesting, but that has come up a number of times from other people in the city. And then the last item that some doubts were expressed about concerns the decision of the city to put in the traffic circle rather than a traditional signalized intersection. So let's see, there was additional discussion of the Virginia Village and the planning for purchasing additional units over time as opportunities arise. And the EDA retreat, in case anybody's interested in that, is going to be March 1st, and affordable housing will be kind of a big issue on their agenda for the coming year. So there may be some of our folks that would be interested in tuning in to hear or possibly participate in that discussion. Wayfinding, March 1st, the wayfinding signs, that's the latest date. So we'll see. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I just realized I need to be added to the, I don't know if they send out like an agenda or, an email for the EDA, since now I'm technically the co-liaison with you. I don't know, it's actually Miss Aubrey, who's our senior staff tonight? I know Paul is not here.
I'm here, Carly.
That's what I thought. Ms. Aubrey is here. If you could somehow, I don't know, who's the staff liaison to the EDA? Is that you? No.
No, Val Miner. So I'm typing up notes from the meeting tonight, so I'll include that you need to be added to that.
Let her know that, yeah, because I thought I might have missed a meeting, but yeah, I'd like to get added so I can get it on my calendar and start attending some of those with Mr. Stevens.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any commissioner reports they would like to share? Right, not seeing any hands. That means everyone was so busy doing other exciting things. Okay, then that takes us to the director's report, which tonight we are fortunate enough to have Miss Aubrey. So, Miss Aubrey, would you please give us the report?
Yep. Good evening, commissioners. So the first thing in the report are the recommendations from the Community Planning and Economic Development Services Department on the upcoming capital improvement program. There's 3 recommendations included in that. The first is to highlight the need for sufficient staffing to deliver grant-funded projects. The second is to create a community development section of the CIP. And then the last one is to suggest a couple new out-year projects. One is for a business conservation and Main Street program. And then the second one is for public investments in the East End planning opportunity area, which is currently, as you know, going under a small area plan process. So that would be to implement some of those recommendations in that plan. I have like a little gnat flying around, sorry. Second item is Seven Corners Ring Road. Staff provided comments to Fairfax County on the updated design for that. Key things to mention is that the updated proposal keeps the road entirely within Fairfax County, and then it realigns the at-grade streets to create a four-legged intersection with Route 7, Wilson, and the Route 50 ramps. And that kind of opens up some more land for some developments and sidewalks and items like that. So staff supported of those updated design from that plan. And then the last one is just attaching some past information that the commission received regarding transfer of development rights. This was back in August 2019, so I know we have at least a couple new members since then. And the reason we wanted to bring this back up for your information is because the Planning Commission's annual report to City Council noted the potential benefits of a TDR program. So we'll be sharing that with Council as well. So, and I believe that was it. I do want to mention, because Mr. Stevens mentioned the EDA last night and the 10-acre. There will be an item next week regarding the conveyance of the larger, approximately 7-acre parcel that's going to be transferred to the EDA. That needs a recommendation from Planning Commission for the council for the city to transfer that land to the EDA. So that will be added on to the agenda for the 16th. So just wanted to make you all aware of that.
Okay. Mr. Stevens, your hand is up.
It is, yes. One comment on the Ring Road discussion in the staff document, which I think looks good from my perspective. I just wanted to make sure I understood this correctly. Is the staff kind of favoring an approach that would have that Ring Road stop at Route 50 rather than continue on to Route 7?
I'm unfortunately can't answer that. I can circle back with Carrie and Paul and get an answer to that question.
Okay, I just remember when we had a discussion of this a couple of months ago, the Ring Road went all the way around and connected to Broad Street. And that raised issues, of course, about additional traffic being induced onto to Route 7. And it just seemed like this approach that we looked at now would have that Ring Road stop at Route 50, which I think makes a lot of sense. I don't know whether the county staff agree with that, but it certainly looked to be advantageous for us. So
Yeah, it did. Yeah, no, that's like their scenario 2B. I don't know, Ms. Arbor, you can like scroll down to that where they show the graphic for that. But I agree. I mean, what it also does is, the area down there where like the 24-hour fitness is and the supermarket there. I mean, it creates a more of a critical mass. It actually improves access to some of those properties, which makes them a lot more accessible. And I think I was talking to Paul, and he had figured back of the envelope it creates almost like a 10-acre kind of chunk that is pretty significant that could really could help. That as opposed to like the Ring Road before becoming like a liability for us, it could in this case could become a real asset that could help with additional development there by providing better access and both car and bike. And so it was a big plus in that sense. And so you can see in some of those graphics there like the difference that with the 2B scenario 2B is. And so, yeah, I think, it's certainly from the city's point of view, it's infinitely better than some of the other options that had it going all the way around, which would have been not a great thing for us. This actually could prove to be very helpful as far as encouraging additional development on some of those properties, that are sort of underutilized today. So yeah, I echo that. It's a good thing. I know Paul was, was very interested in advancing that option with the city, with the county DOT. So I told him I can't officially lobby for that, but I know some of the folks working on that, and I can try to hit them up in the lunchroom if we still had a lunchroom to push that option, because I think it's the better option by far. So anyhow, but yeah, just echo that. All right. There are a few other things, Miss Aubrey. I think there's a couple of things. Is that it? Is there a couple other
Nope,
things?
that's all I had. I think last thing is to go back to the minutes to get those adopted.
Oh yeah, the
Look
minutes.
at Emily's already got them up there.
We were short on the minutes. Now that Mr. Hira's with us, because Ms. Coman had to abstain. She wasn't there. So now that Mr. Hira is here, we can get back to the very important business of adopting our minutes. So we'll go back to item 6A, which we tabled. I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for reminding me.
Got my power on this here. You don't want to.
So would anyone be so kind as to make a motion to adopt the January 19th minutes?
I will move again to adopt the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And I believe was Ms. Teets, did you second that before?
Yes, that did.
So you're would you re-second it?
Yes, I second.
Okay. Good. All right. Discussion on that. If not, then we will get a roll call.
Chair Krasner,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens, Ms. Teets,
Yes.
Ms. Comont,
Abstain.
oh yes, and Mr. Hira.
Yes.
All right.
The all-important fourth vote to approve the minutes. So those minutes, we
Good
don't want to get behind. I mean, Ms. Bazemore does such a good job of keeping us up to date on minutes. I've worked with boards that are years behind on minutes, and so we don't want that to happen to us. So good. Now thank goodness that Ms. Hira showed up. Otherwise, we would have potentially been meeting behind. All right. Well, I think the only other item is correspondence. We did get. Is that letter part of the director's report, or was that correspondence? Do we have any correspondence, Ms. Bazemore, or was that we did have a letter from Mr. Gresko, but that was part of the director's report?
No correspondence other than the public comment from Mr. Gresko on TDR.
Okay, so we did get a comment from Mr. Gresko on TDR, just to acknowledge that we received it, and so everyone had a chance to read his comments on that. I'll also note, I know we had talked, before, I believe Mr. Gresko made the comment about acknowledging written comment. I think I alluded, just to use this opportunity to restate that. I alluded to one of the letters we received on the, in relation to the subdivision application. I mean, I might just, if the board would indulge me, or maybe Ms. Bazemore would be better suited, if you could just acknowledge the name. We received all the letters, and so but maybe just to make sure, if you just for the record could just, without reading all the letters, if you could just identify the letter writers who submitted materials that we received, so those folks know that we did indeed get them. You would.
I'm gonna have to pull those up really quick.
Can just take a second to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's important, especially in our virtual format here, that folks know that we got the correspondence and we read it. And so if we could just acknowledge that we received these letters, because there was I forgot the final count, if it was 5 or 6, there was a few that came in at the last minute.
Yeah, so we have Eric Mueller. We're just gonna go down the list. Tom Moffett. Let's see.
Just Thurkill.
Yep, David Thurkill. All right, I think this is David again. All right, and then I'm gonna go down
We
to
got
the
like
next
the
one.
president of the Steeples HOA. I'm not sure if that, maybe that is,
Is it Susan Sasner? No. Not seeing one from the HOA, but I probably just missed it. Maybe it's on this one. Okay, no, I'm not seeing.
I think it was earlier.
Okay. Okay, no, I'm not seeing that one. I may need to go back and search.
I know we got it. I read everything that we got. I read. So if it's in there, I read it. But maybe for the next meeting, and I know I just put you on the spot, Ms. Bazemore, but maybe for the next meeting, for any additional written comment that comes in, if we could, we'll take some time during that hearing, maybe after this any in-person or in-person virtual speakers speak, to just identify, maybe summarize the concerns. I know they do that at the at the city council. They do that, and I think that's actually a good thing. I know Mr. Gresko recommended that. I believe it was him, and I actually like that suggestion, especially during our virtual format, so that folks can know that we got those letters and that we put them on the record at the meeting. Especially when it's not if there was a day where we were inundated with like 100, we might have to talk about a different format, but when it's only a handful, I think we can give people the courtesy of just identifying the letters we received and so if you could do that for next time, and that would be good. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I can do that next time.
Excellent. Okay. Well, all right. Well, then if that's that, and again, I also I hope that I apologize to the commission if I again went on and on that lot, but I'm not an adjacent neighbor. I do live in the neighborhood, and so many of my neighbors have chatted with me about it, and I'm very familiar with it. And so, I had a lot to say, but I apologize for being so compromising or monopolizing the time with the applicant there. But I just had a lot to say on that one. So, thank you. All right. There's nothing else.
I have just one other thing. Could we
Okay.
could we make that lot a swimming pool?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
True story. The guy there was a guy who's been renting that property for a long time. He used to live there was a guy who'd been renting that property. He used to live in the house next door before that was redeveloped. And he had a little aluminum rowboat that he used, I think, to fish in lakes, but he kept it in the yard, and there was a day where he went out in that backyard. So no joke, there's that much of an inundation. It's there's that much that you can, I don't think you'd want to swim in that water, but you can row a boat in it. I mean, that's the level of depth we're talking about. So yeah, and you don't see that, you don't see that every day. Even in our city that's prone to some troubling flooding in certain spots. So anyhow. Well, again, I appreciate everyone their attention to that, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, if there's nothing else for the good of the cause, we will, I guess, enjoy a somewhat early night. I don't know, and we'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission adjourned. See everybody in a couple weeks.
Good night, all.
16.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.